Hey, back for Mystery Monday again, week 2. We got started last week and I had picked my fabrics for our first week, and this is the collection. However, when I got looking at them, I realized they were kind of tightly wound, so I went back to my collection. I picked some other fabrics to give it a little bit more sparkle. Picked from my scraps, went ahead and cut my sections of fabric that I needed. I picked from a lot of different fabrics. I picked things that were like panels. Because the pieces are so small, I was able to get a little bit more pop. And so then I went in and I even picked like backing scraps and those things that we all have laying around, ends of fat quarters, even picked some colors that were quite out of the range of what I had started with. Pulled out this old panel from 2008 that I wondered what I was going to do with 3 of them. Went ahead and trimmed it up, cut it down into my strips, and then this week we're going to be cutting strips the same size as we did last week. So I'm going to start cutting my pieces, and I'm going to cut them into the strips that are size on your instructions. Trimmed them down, started off with the 4 and then trimmed them back a little bit. So when I do this, I like working from one side, turning it around, then coming and trimming it into the 2 pieces, and I work from there. In this one I'm showing you where I was cutting the squares and how I just go ahead and I cut the 4s, then I back off onto the 2s. If I had a 6-inch ruler, I'd use it at 6 and go to 4 and 2. My scraps, I like to keep those in a basket nearby. Again, have a hard time kind of getting rid of those guys. I am going to be saving them because later on I'm going to show you what I do with my scraps, and it's kind of a cool little trick that I do, especially this time of year. Now, when I go ahead and cut these pieces up, I'm going to be cutting them up into the same size of strips for my next units. Here I'm using my 1/4 square triangle, and if you notice when I laid that down on that strip, I realized that the strip is a little bit too tall. That means probably I cut too many strips at a time, and I probably got it a little bit too far. I was cutting 4 layers at a time, and it probably shifted out of the way a little bit, and you can see that it's just slightly taller there. Now I could go ahead and cut that triangle, but I know that later on when I get working on this I'm going to have some troubles. I could go ahead and cut the left and the right and then trim off the top. But really what the better thing is for me to do would be to go back and retrim my strip in the first place. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my strip again. As you can see, I just trimmed just a very tiny bit off of each side, and surprise, surprise, it all fit in there much better. Put the scraps into the basket again, and then I go in and I'm going to lay this out and lay my 1/4 square ruler down and do my first cut. I'm leaving 4 fingers on the ruler, thumb is off the edge, so I can do my cutting, and then I'll cut the 2 pieces away. I'm moving them away so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm flipping the ruler over top to from the bottom up. I'm going to lay the ruler down, line it up along the side, and do my cutting back and forth. Sometimes I found it was a little bit easier to see through my ruler so I wasn't looking through it upside down. So sometimes I'll flip my ruler over so I can see the nifty notions going the right way. Then the inking is up against this. These strips are so small actually that, and I only have like 5 points in which I can see where to line up that long triangle. So I really want to take my time, be careful with this, maybe not cut quite so many. As you can see, my rotary cutter that I'm using is one of my smaller ones. I might be inclined to use one of my larger rulers. Triangles have a tendency to kind of slip away on us otherwise. So getting on with spring, I will take these scraps and I like to take them out to my yard. They're great in birds' nests. The birds do like to pick them up, scatter them around on the yard, and as long as your neighbors don't get complaining about this. But once in a while when I threw them out this time I happened to notice, yikes, I put some salvages in there. I like to save those for Patty, and so I had to go rescue them. I kind of look pathetic running around the yard looking for these pieces. Now we're going to actually be going to picking up our triangles, and we're going to go into the sewing machine and we're going to get started sewing. Now in this one you can see I've already gone through and I've got one that I've sewn through, but I'm going to take my 2 pieces and I'm going to be matching them up. Now these are 1/4 square triangles, which means I have the bias along the left and the right there. I'm going to walk this into the machine in this direction because I'm actually putting these together as 4 triangles. Now if you notice, I've got this lined up and I've crossed over just a little bit so I don't have a whole bunch of thread going underneath. And I'm looking at my 1/4 inch out in the front, and that needle comes in there, and I'm going to go right up against nose. So I'm picking up another one of my backgrounds and then one of my fabrics. This one I'm putting going the opposite way because I want the 2 backgrounds opposing each other. When I take these apart later on, I'm going to be just picking them out of the machine with the 4 triangles, and so that's why I like them going in the same direction. And so here I've got a set of them that I did before. I take this and I finger press back my backgrounds, and then I'll flip it the other way, and they're still connected there in the middle, like, you know, I'm going to be able to figure out where they're at, but I just finger press them, mostly the meeting points. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them right sides together. I have 3 points that I'm going to be lining this up with. The first is the first triangle there, the furthest away, that's going to be going under the needle, and I'm lining this up with my 1/4 inch, doing a little bit of the crossover. I come up to that intersecting seam and I check it out to make sure the 2 seams are locking together, and I'm sewing up to that. I pause there, then I make sure I line up my last 2 points, and I head out of the machine, and I'm still using my 1/4 inch. I want to be careful that I don't stray too far as I'm going out of the machine. And so now I'm going to put up one of my next pieces. I'm going to walk it in the machine. Again, being careful of how we go in and out with triangles really makes a big difference. I'm going to come back here and trim this out so you can get a chance to peek at it to see the little victory here. And I'm so excited with how this turned out. Look at how clean that center point is. Boy, you don't get it much cleaner than that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back with my snips, and I like to cut off these dog ears now so that I can end up not having quite so much bulk. And I'll just go around this. Usually I like to have a little bowl or a scrap bin or something. I suppose I'll throw those out to the birds, but I don't know if any bird will pick them up. But they're sure darn cute little corners there. So I've got them all put out there, and look at that little square. And that square has got some really nice points to it. I'm real pleased with that. You're going to make those units up as per what I've written on the instructions for you. I put these units in between my 4 patches as I was working on them. They're really a classy little piece to add to this collection. Hey, be sure to send us your pictures of your work. We'd really like to see them. Bye-bye.